Oh my god! Of all the films that I had to start this channel off, I had to pick this one. Why? Do I feel like I'm fighting for something? For more than my survival? Can I say what it is? Do I even know? Is it freedom of truth? Perhaps peace? Could it be for love? Illusions of perception. Temporary constructs of the feeble human intellect trying to find reason without meaning or purpose. Why? Why do I persist? Start the intro! Let's get this shit over and done with already. Anna! Yes, Ryan? What's up? So, you're not going to believe this. Mar-Vell just got in touch. They're interested in us writing and directing an MCU film. An MCU film? That's big budget stuff. Exactly. The pay isn't going to be Raimi level, but it's a lot more than we've made so far. It's a major step up for us. But our expertise is in indie films, Ryan. This is different. Are we equipped to handle this? I know, but think about it. It's an MCU movie. We have decades of comic book material to work with. Plus, with the MCU fanbase, people will watch it even if it's not perfect. Okay, but which character are we looking at? Spider-Man? Iron Man? It's Captain Mar-Vell. Captain who? I know, not exactly a household name, but the character has been around for a long time. The comics have been relaunched over a dozen times in the last 40 years. Relaunched? Or cancelled? Well, technically cancelled a few times, yes, but they keep bringing it back. Must be something to it, right? What if we mess this up, Ryan? Anna, we have to have faith. We'll do our best. And you know us, we love a good character story. So, let's see where Captain Mar-Vell takes us. Now, say it with me. Captain Money, I mean Captain Mar-Vell. Captain Mar-Vell? Captain Mar-Vell. Mar-Vell as we know it dates from early 1960s. The creation of superheroes such as Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk, Black Widow, and others. Stan Lee, writer and editor, was the main guy behind all of this, being a very talented man. Yet Captain Mar-Vell, however, was not one of his most successful creations, being regarded by many as merely a slightly worse written Superman copy. Despite trying to make it work multiple times with changes here and there, it failed to register with readers. That was until they appeared to think less Superman and more Wonder Woman, turning Captain Mar-Vell into a woman called Carol Danvers, and trying to appeal to the young feminist market. And believe it or not, it managed to find a tiny reader base who stuck with it since. Yet evidently this reader base still isn't large enough for Mar-Vell to justify not repeatedly cancelling it when sales drop. This comic repeatedly goes through the same cycle. Anytime Mar-Vell does a massive mashup crossover with all of their comic books, they always include Captain Mar-Vell to get said demographic in. Then, when hardcore fans of other comics take an interest, they relaunch Captain Mar-Vell's own comic while interest is high, and then they just ride out the popularity of the crossovers until the bulk of those readers lose interest in reading Captain Mar-Vell comics, and the true Captain Mar-Vell fans is all that's left. Then it gets cancelled, and then rinse and repeat. So naturally, when Mar-Vell films in the MCU started getting popular doing crossovers, naturally this cycle had to repeat itself on the big screen. And since Mar-Vell is used to this cycle by now, they no doubt decided to save themselves a bit of money and hire Ann Warden and Ryan Fleck, being two relatively unknown writers and directors, known for focusing on telling grounded, character-driven stories. Their works such as Mississippi Grind and Half Nelson centered around characters struggling with personal issues and societal pressures, highlighting themes like addiction, failure, and resilience. These two clearly have a love for storytelling, with a focus on people. Their passion aside, however, they had zero experience with large blockbuster filmography. The choice of them by Mar-Vell is suspect. Again, Mar-Vell aren't idiots, and they're more than used to seeing how this Captain Marvel cycle tends to go. I think Mark Hamill summed it up perfectly with his response to the new Star Wars films, and the problem with parts of Hollywood in general.
Because in Hollywood, remember kids, it's not important if it's of high quality, only if it makes money. Because The Force Awakens made a lot of money, it's not ergo, it's good. My larger point was, it doesn't matter if it's good as long as it makes money.
With the only qualifications these two have being a few awards for some indie films they've made, what that means is they're cheap. Why waste money on expensive, high-quality grain to feed a half-dead horse, eh? Still, maybe it'll still be good. I mean, inconsistent characterization, diversity signaling, and being overpowered. How bad can it possibly be? So, with that in mind, let's begin the grind. Okay, so the movie starts off with a homage to the late Stan Lee, which is a nice touch. However, it is a little bit ironic, since this guy was extremely talented at creating well-written and impactful superheroes, and this is the film he gets his homage in? I'm just saying, there were better places to have his homage in. It's like having Churchill's funeral in Gallipoli. Speaking of a disaster, here's our opening for immature Smurfette, and she appears to be dazzled in some kind of accident, bleeding blue blood. Well, it appears deep down, she's actually an aristocrat. But psych! Turns out it was just a dream. Wow, we're not even 2 minutes in and I already hate this film. The opening sets the tone for the entire film, and this is their opening. Really lazy writing. I mean, you can open with a dream or a memory, but you still have to put some effort in to set the tone just before that.
Like, you know, we should start our stories where they begin, not start them where they get interested.
So it appears Miss No Name here has woken up in some futuristic alien capital city called Hala, only for her to get a knock on the door by Jude Law, because apparently she overslept. My god, look at how fed up he is. I would wonder if this was the direction he was told to take, yet it's possible that his on-screen frustration might have some off-screen reality to it, since some of her past actions with co-workers have raised questions about her professionalism.
Tom Cruise over here?
No, I want to be the first me, not the next Tom Cruise. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Right, guys?
Yeah.
Isn't it fun being there for all my extra takes?
Trained you up for the apprenticeship.
After giving a no-given excuse for why she overslept, she asks if he wants to fight. Hey! Finally a good scene! Yet of course, she refuses to accept any criticism whatsoever for how her apparent mentor punched her to the ground. With a little bit of exposition dumping, we find out she has no memory of her past, and she has a real problem controlling her emotions.
Lose control again and you'll have to commune with a supreme intelligence. There's nothing more dangerous to a warrior than emotion.
For cheating in the fight, she's sent to something called the Supreme Intelligence, who takes the form of some woman from her reoccurring dreams. Old Sarah Connor tells the woman without a name so far, again, that she can't control her emotions.
You struggle with your emotions.
Movie? Didn't you already tell us that like 3 other times in the last 2 minutes already?
Control it. There's nothing more dangerous to a warrior than emotion.
Humor is a distraction.
Anger only serves the enemy. Control your impulses. Stop using this, start using this. I want you to be the best version of yourself.
Oh, I get it. This is a superhero movie, meaning we need to follow the hero's journey. Like Doctor Strange, he was very self-centered at the beginning. Yet at the end, he sacrificed himself for others, in true heroic fashion. Well, I for one can't wait to see how her story arc, and how emotionally she will develop into a stoic hero that selflessly sacrifices for others. But enough of that, we have to focus on the bad guys, being a group of shapeshifters called the Skrulls, who apparently were the ones who have something to do with her memory loss. So her and a bunch of other apparent soldiers then go off to fight the Skrulls.
Has a Skrull ever simmed you?
Once. It was deeply disturbing.
Why?
Because I stared into the face of my mortal enemy, and the face staring back was my own.
Maybe if you were more attractive, then it would be less disturbing.
You think you're funny, but I'm not laughing.
You gotta love a movie that is at least slightly self-aware. So this group of Kree soldiers invade a planet and get into a fight with some Skrulls. And apparently there's more than they thought. And in the process, Superstar here gets captured. And then we get some more lazy dreams? I don't even know anymore. Either way, it turns out she was an American Air Force pilot on Earth, courtesy of the Skrulls scanning her brain and providing us with a little more exposition dump. From these flashbacks, it appears her biggest problem is being criticised by others, mostly in regards to her being too emotional.
You don't belong out here! I think we went that.
Not strong enough!
They'll never let you fly.
You're a decent pilot, but you're too emotional. You do know why they call it a cockpit, don't you?
And for being a woman, apparently. Kitty! What? I like cats. I'd rather be thinking about cats than this piece of shit film. So anyway, she piloted something, it went wrong, and I don't even care at this point. This is not interesting.
Yes! Did you want me to weep with joy? It's terrible!
Let's talk about something that's more interesting. Like how it appears she's not very good at controlling her emotions.
You like that? You want me to cut to 3 weeks earlier, when you were alive?
Anyway, she wakes up from the Skrulls giving her brain a struggle cuddle, and then breaks out of there, which appears to be a spaceship, which is now crashing to Earth. Falling from space, she crashes through the top of a blockbuster? Okay, so as MCU films go, this is a prequel that's set all the way back in 1995. And since she's 28 in this film, then that means in Endgame, she was 56 years old. She must have been using some, like, super duper space Botox or something. She phones home for a space Uber, and they tell her to sit tight and wait. Only for SamuelLJackson to talk to her. Because of a blockbuster? Look, I loved blockbusters too. Yeah, I think government agencies have just, you know, a little bit more on their plate to worry about. On that, her acting is just awful.
How long you plan to be in town?
Oh, I'll be out of your hair as soon as I track down the Skrulls that are infiltrating your planet. You guys don't have any clue, do you?
Whoa, hold on.
I mean, the writing is bad enough, yet her acting? There is not a single ounce of anything she is doing that makes me believe she's a space woman, let alone a superhero. All of this, she can't control her emotions, I think is just a polite way of saying narcissism. She's fallen from space from what should have been a fatal crash, and from her perspective, on an alien planet. And I can only describe her emotions as ranging from nonchalant to just plain uninterested. So anyway, some more mindless action happens, for no actual reason that even benefits the Skrulls. Very conveniently in front of SamuelLJackson, so he can just blindly accept her as the good guy. And that is convenient, since so far she hasn't really done anything heroic, or learnt even a single gram of humility. But don't worry, I'm sure she will. And she is a superhero after all. Anyway, she fights some more Skrulls, gets a copy of her hidden memories they took from her, and then gets bothered by a biker while she's reading a map.
You lighten up, honey, huh? A smile for me?
Wait, whatever happened to her inability to control her emotions? Based on her behaviour throughout the rest of this film, she should have got angry there, instead of ignore him and then heroically steal his bike when he went in the store? Christ, there is so much wrong with this one scene, I don't even know where to start. The idea of controlling your emotions isn't to hide when you're hurt and then get your revenge in a cold manner. The idea is to have some humility and just let it go sometimes. Okay, some random guy made a comment saying you should smile more, that you didn't appreciate that much. So, get over it, act like an adult. Aren't superheroes supposed to, I don't know, not act like immature children? This whole scene is setting the tone for the direction of the story arc, and it's not a good one. Still, maybe she'll change and she'll actually grow up later in the film. I'm sure of it. She heads off to some bar from her memories, and finds the blockbuster protector waiting for her. Somehow. Seriously, what is he doing there? Seems like a little bit of a plot hole, maybe. Anywho, they team up and become the new buddy cop TV show. Oh, right after she heroically blows a hole in some guy's bar. Because it was cool, I guess. Now, I joke about the buddy cop TV show, but given the amount of crap TV shows that Mar-Vell repeatedly keep churning out as much as they can, you know damn well they at least considered it. They drive off and go to some S.H.I.E.L.D. government thingy called Project Pegasus, and... Kitty! What?
Aren't you cute? And what's your name, huh? What's your name? Goose.
Goose? What, like in Top Gun? Okay, so some of my younger viewers might not, get the reference. Think of a homoerotic 1980s action movie with jet fighters. So anyway, she unnecessarily destroys more of other people's property in a totally heroic fashion, finds some blueprints for a light-speed engine in Kree alien text made by what's-her-name, and finds out that both she and herself are recorded as dying in a test flight of this experimental aircraft. She phones home about this, and they tell her Larson was a Kree operative working on this engine to help the Kree win the war. And all of these memories of hers were implanted by the Skrulls, and she sorta buys it. Regardless of the fact her picture was literally in the file she just read. But more importantly...
Do not let your emotions override your judgment.
Okay, now spoiler alert that no one saw coming. The Kree are actually the bad guys, and they're gaslighting her. The bad guys are the ones telling her to control her emotions, and clearly doing it to further control her and stop her asking too many questions, and yet even that aside, they still have a point. They might be lying and controlling her selfishly for their own ends, yet they're literally the only ones in this entire film who actually call her out on her dysfunctional behaviour. Why are they the only ones telling her off? Why isn't Nick Fury, I don't know, acting like Nick Fury?
Look at you, just look at you. Aren't you the cutest little...
I'm just saying, if the bad guys are the only ones putting her in line, this doesn't appear to be setting up the healthiest of lessons to all those little girls out there following their role model. But maybe this story arc will have a good, healthy resolution by the end of it. I'm sure of it. But oh no, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents turn up to arrest or kill both of them, when they're only there because Fury called them in. Wait, why arrest or kill Fury? Even if this was because of manipulation by the Skrulls, that still doesn't make any sense why they would, even from a cynical point of view. I mean, this is very convenient writing that keeps said buddy cop team on the same side. Did I mention that these two directors won some awards for their indie films? I mean, Captain Mar-Vell was going to be dead on arrival anyway. Yeah, this is just a double helping of nonsense.
What? Your communicator? You obviously can't be trusted with it.
Really? So not only Nick Fury isn't putting her arse in line, she's the one putting him in line? Look, I can suspend my disbelief to accept a fictional world of superheroes and magic and stuff, yet expediently taking a dump on human nature and completely changing a character's beliefs and behaviour on the fly just to hold your nonsense writing together, that's where I draw the line. They fly out of there, all three of them. God, I love that cat. He's probably my favourite character in the entire film. Also, I don't want to be that person, yet the fact Captain Mar-Vell's superhero sidekick is her cat, that has to be the most appropriately written part of this entire story.
He's a real comfort. I might even get a second cat.
Then after some happy exposition dumping, they decide to find this other pilot who saw her before the crash. Seriously, these two have just been in a fight resulting from him kind of betraying her treating him like a child when she's a child herself, and he's now an outlaw by his own people. And there's no argument or anything, just...
Guess he doesn't hate me yet.
Yeah, well, give him time.
I guess he had a feeling. You know, what keeps us human.
I get in trouble for that. A lot.
Oh, I can see that about you.
Well, I won't tell your boss if you don't tell mine.
These writers remind me of a welder I once knew who couldn't do the most basic of welding to save his life, and his only excuse was he was good enough to get his qualifications. Just like these two got rewarded to write and direct a multi-million-dollar movie, his inability to weld was rewarded by being promoted to an office job. I'm just saying, stuff like this is proof there's lots of qualifications and awards out there that aren't worth the paper they're written on. This is what happens when industries lower their standards. If a qualification or award is not actually based on merit, and those qualifications and awards are taken seriously, then it just undermines the very point of having awards and qualifications in the first place. So they find the other pilot, who's apparently her friend, and to prove her story, she...
That's so cool.
Heats up a kettle? What, she only needlessly blows up the property of total strangers who aren't her friends?
She can do a lot more than make tea with those hands.
They have a little heart-to-heart girl talk like old friends, talking about how hard it is to be a female pilot and all that. She finds out the test flight happened early because there were lives to save, and that's why she flew the craft.
Said
If there were lives at stake, I would fly the plane.
Yeah. Yep, big hero moment.
Big hero moment. I like how the movie literally needs to spell it out that she's a hero, much like how Endgame had to literally spell it out how much the other heroes like her.
But you know what, just sit down. We need you. You're new blood.
I like this one.
And there is a very good reason for that. Ever heard the phrase that a rich man doesn't need to tell you he's rich? The script needs to tell the audience she's a liked hero, because her actions show she's neither. Nothing in this film shows any sense of duty or desire to put others before herself. So this scene of her flying a test craft to save others, it's a bit left field and doesn't really add up. What is consistent is she doesn't think about the consequences of her actions, so likely couldn't even conceive she was going to crash, as opposed to be the first one to fly this spacecraft. But nah, let's just assert heroism. She finds out her name is Carol Danvers, just before the Skrulls give her a knock on the door. Lucky guess they were right where she was heading, huh? They come in and talk to her after finding out she was the pilot in that crash those years ago. And it turns out they really don't like cats. Makes you wonder why the crew don't keep more of them about then. He shows her the audio recording from the black box from the crash site that shows they were heading to Larson's secret space lab orbiting Earth, until they were intercepted by a Kree fighter that shot them down, complete with more exposition dumping dream stuff? Seriously, movie, stop with the needless flashbacks and exposition dumping. It's not like the reveal was a massive surprise or anything. We already knew about the Kree from Guardians of the Galaxy a full 5 years before this film came out. You may as well have actually started at the beginning and did it properly. This isn't like iRobot with one small yet tragic accident from his past. All of this backstory is very long and complicated. It's not some side dish of the story to add flavour to that you can have the odd flashback to. It's integral to the storyline and origin. You could have taken that out of iRobot and still made a movie out of it. But this? All of this is her origin story, and they're just treating it like a kid handing in their homework at the last minute. So anyway, while Larson was verbalising plot points to Danvers as opposed to being more worried about her getting shot down and dying, they crash, and Larson keeps telling the audience the plot while she's dying, including that her real name is actually Mar-Vell. It turns out she's a Kree turncoat trying to protect the Skrulls, who the Kree declared war on and are hunting down and slaughtering. Wow, for someone who's dying, she sure does seem to have it pretty well together. Anyway, she tries to blow up the craft to stop the Kree getting it, yet Jude Law shoots her before she can. Turns out the craft is powered by the Space Stone, which the Kree want, and she then blows up like Larson tried, and that's both how she got her memory loss and powers. Since she got her powers, they took her and brainwashed her into being one of their own. And yeah, that's how she got her superpowers that comes with 0 weaknesses whatsoever. Hell, even Wanda, who is basically a more well-written equivalent of being overpowered and getting her powers from an Infinity Stone too, even she has weaknesses, mostly in regards to not being able to control her power. With Captain Mar-Vell, however, she's just the most powerful one with no weaknesses and nothing holding her back. Except the Kree, of course, who implanted her with some kind of chip to better control her. Wow. I'm really glad I invested that time to find out how she got her super interesting superpowers and her super interesting backstory. I mean, why bother making the origin as some kind of moral choice, or some random ill-fated double-edged sword that's both a gift and a curse, when you can just randomly make her perfect with zero flaws? The Skrull tells her what this war really is and how she's been lied to, and after some resistance she accepts the Skrulls aren't the bad guys, but merely refugees defending themselves from an unjust war they didn't start, that the Kree falsely blames for war crimes that they themselves committed. This light-speed ship was to transport the Skrulls far out of the reach of the Krees. That was their plan. They ask for her help since her energy signature can help track down the Space Stone, which was used to power the spacecraft. I don't know what use that is to them since the craft is toast, but whatever, she agrees to help. Now, some would say that's the act of a hero, but I don't. Captain Virtue Signal here has literally nothing to lose helping them, and everything to gain, mostly in regards to gaining some more somewhat powerful allies in her fight against the Kree after learning they're her enemies. In agreeing to help them, Captain Mary Sue gets to work by talking down to them and just tells them how to find the secret base without any effort whatsoever.
That was the location on the date of the crash 6 years ago. If we track its course, we'll find it in orbit right now.
It's just basic physics.
In orbit. Was that so difficult to figure out? I mean, you're my science guy, right?
So this kid helps her change the colours of her spacesuit and they fly off to the space lab.
Is this normal, like space turbulence?
Pretty much.
Kitty! It's the only thing getting me through this. Fun fact, when this film came out, a poster of the cat was part of the advertisement for this film, and a friend of mine actually thought the cat was Captain Mar-Vell. I'll be honest, I'd go with that. I mean, the comic has been cancelled and relaunched like a dozen times already. I mean, it's the current year. Forget with this man-to-woman progressiveness, let's be super progressive and make it woman to cat. Goose the cat as the new Captain Mar-Vell. I'd actually pay at the cinema to watch that. So they find this hidden lab, the Space Stone, and a bunch of Skrulls hiding there, which was secretly the real reason they were looking for this base.
It's okay. We didn't know what to do. Mar-Vell warned us not to send a signal for any reason. The Kree would find us.
You did the right thing.
I am not gonna hurt you.
She let me tell you.
I'm so sorry. I didn't know.
I can't tell what's worse, the writing or the acting. In either case, both are bad. So what? She didn't really seem to care finding out about what was going on, including what even happened to her for that matter, yet seeing a few Skrull kids in hiding brings out some of her sad eyes and an empty apology? It's just not a believable response for someone who feels guilty or empathetic. It is a believable response for somebody wanting sympathy for their wrongs, as opposed to responsibility. That sounds about right. But enough about that. The Kree followed them there, and she tries to fight them, but that chip of hers doesn't let her. They plug her back into the AI, the cat gets a Bane mask because it's deemed a massive threat, and she starts to finally show some human emotion over what the Kree did to her. The AI slaps her about a bit and tells her how emotional and weak she is.
You're weak.
Complete with more flashbacks! Movie, what is your problem? Is this what it's like inside the head of a narcissist? Having constant Vietnam flashbacks to all the times they were ever told off and put down?
You're right. I'm only human.
Now don't talk about yourself like that. You're not just human. You're more than human. You are perfect. You're more than perfect, in fact. You are perfect exactly the way you are. Now make all of those horrible, nasty critics putting you down just, go away. Then we get more flashbacks of her bravely getting back on her feet in life, just like everyone else. and then she gets up to assert herself to this AI, asserting her real name with a tear.
My name is Carol.
My lord, what a strong and powerful message. I mean, forget about all those Skrull kids that are about to get ejected into space and all that. Nah, what deeply matters is her mummy told her some mean things. Now, no word of a lie, this right here, her actually fighting her and trying to release herself from this chip holding her back. It's the only part of this entire movie I feel her as being interesting and depicting an important message. The entire purpose of superhero powers in fiction is merely to depict an exaggerated aspect of human nature, which is agency, our ability to affect the world around us using whatever special skills we have. That's why every superhero, and even villains, need to have some weaknesses. Life is made up of obstacles, and how we navigate and overcome those obstacles. A superhero without an obstacle to overcome is completely unrelatable. The only people who can relate to that are spoiled entitled princesses who've never had a real day's work in their life. Hence their only obstacle in life is not being liked and told off occasionally. That's why this is the only interesting scene from her in this entire film, because this is the only time she actually shows real hardship in trying to overcome an obstacle. And that lasts about 1 minute. That's it. 1 lousy minute is all this movie gives us of interesting character development, and then she overcomes it, and then she just goes back to being an uninteresting character. Actually, it's worse than that, because her character development, her great lesson in between the lines, isn't about the importance of facing hardships, or having humility, or in others' criticism. No, her grand lesson is to simply ignore all criticism from others as irrelevant. You heard that, little girls. Your role model says to never accept criticism, because being held back in any way is wrong, and you deserve to live in a world without obstacles whatsoever. So she defeats the Krees using her cheat code powers, which is super interesting, just like how interesting it was watching her struggle to fight Thanos. Then Goose shows why the Skrulls were scared of him being some kind of alien cat who eats the Space Stone. Kitty? Well, that's going to give me nightmares. The Skrulls get away, she learns to fly, and she outright openly decides she doesn't need to keep her emotions in check, throwing them on others as being a perfectly acceptable choice for an adult in society, because that's what a strong and independent woman is, apparently.
I have nothing to prove to you.
You heard that, little girls? You don't need to grow up. Just stay a Wendy your entire life. But don't find a Peter Pan. Just find, another Wendy. She sends him back to Hala with a message that she's going to stop the Kree Empire. And Goose takes Fury's eye. Are you f***ing serious? In this film, they've done to Fury what they did to Thor in Endgame. They took a very popular and interesting character, and they turned him into a big f***ing joke.
Look at you, just look at you. Aren't you the cutest little...
In both cases, they were done for the same reason, to make Captain Mar-Vell look better. God, just get this over already. She decides on her name, Captain Mar-Vell, because she was a captain in the Air Force, and in honour of Mar-Vell. She flies off into space with her new Skrull friends, yet not before the film retroactively tries to steal the title of First Avenger for her from Captain America, making her nickname Avenger in the Air Force, and that's what gives Fury his idea for the Avengers. Oh, thank God. It's over. I do have one question, though. Just one question. What happened to Goose? She didn't take him with her. She left him with Fury. and we never saw him in any of the other films. Huh. Now that is a serious plot hole, and I expect nothing less from these two fine directors. And with all that said, that was Captain Mar-Vell. You know, I'll give this movie credit where credit is due. It did manage to become a financial success. Anyone can make a bad movie, but to make a bad movie and still get people to pay money to see it, and defend it as not that bad, that is no small feat. And I wanted to make it clear, I don't hate these writers and directors. Hell, I barely know anything about them, mostly because they keep such a private life. I don't hate them, I just don't regard them as very good at their job. However, that being said, as far as I'm aware, they successfully brought Captain Mar-Vell to life, staying true to the source material. And even though they did a lousy job of it, they still created a movie that made money. And I assume they at least had some fun doing it, though I'll imagine it wasn't as fun as they initially thought it would be. However, all that aside, it's just a bad movie. The plot was ridiculous, the acting was wooden, the actions of the characters was nonsensical at times, and the overall story just wasn't interesting or insightful. And even though I think some more talented writers and directors could have done a better job, I really don't blame them for this, because this movie was dead on arrival. Not even the best in the game could make a good movie out of Captain Mar-Vell while staying true to the source material. Because it is the source material itself that is the problem. Mar-Vell tried to do Superman and then Wonder Woman, yet they completely missed the point on why they appeared to break all the rules and still work. Because they didn't break the rules, they just followed them in a different way. Superman is one of the greats because he is godlike in power, and yet he still has problems that aren't easily solvable. Whether that's a green little rock that's lethal to him, and no one else, or dealing with issues of human nature. You ever watched Superman vs. the Elite? My god, that has to be one of the greatest superhero stories I've ever seen in my life, since that's basically a god who can't do anything with his power to fix the issue, because the issue is a highly complex societal one with no quick, easy fixes. Captain Mar-Vell, however, has always been empty, lacking any real philosophy or relatable life experience. All it has ever been is a childish fantasy of desiring to live in a world where you get everything you want with no cost whatsoever, and that is just simply not relatable to most people. The only people who can relate to that are very dysfunctional and immature people who are completely detached from reality, which is why it found its niche among feminism. And this is where the issue is. Captain Mar-Vell isn't a superhero. Heroism requires selfless sacrifice for the good of others, and she simply does not do that. She merely uses the power of plot armor to engineer the world the way she wants it. Again, compare this to Wanda. She tries to do that, yet the plot grounds her into reality that everything comes with a cost, and her actions have consequences. That is not true of Captain Mar-Vell. Her actions do not come with negative consequences. You can't self-sacrifice if your plot armor shields you from it. She is not a superhero. What she is propaganda for profit. Mar-Vell wanting to make a profit, as corporations tend to, is doing something recklessly irresponsible and even dangerous, since these are targeted towards children, which is pointing to immaturely dysfunctional behaviour and delusional beliefs, and falsely labelling them as heroic, desirable and acceptable. This is genuinely bottom of the barrel marketing as far as fiction goes, and it has long-term negative consequences. Unlike what this story tries to sell, the fact is actions do have consequences, and these actions Mar-Vell is doing are harmful, causing damage in society that will come back to bite them in time. The bill comes due, always. Well, that was quite an adventure, wasn't it? Yeah, Ryan, we've spun so many character-driven narratives, and this one was definitely a unique edition. So, what are you thinking of doing with your half of the paycheck? Well, we've got a taste of the big leagues now. The whole world is our playground. You want to make another terrible indie film? I thought you'd never ask. So that's the end of the show, and remember, likes and shares are always a treasure, watching the ads helps the algorithm glow, join the Bear Army on Patreon. Don't be slow. Is it over? Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Oh, it's not fair.